Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today, I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Today, all I'm asking is to make sure you're following on your favorite podcasting platform, or if you're on YouTube, drop a like on this video because it really does help us out. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Primary Ladder 8310. No problem, sign this. It seems that you people love my Malicious Compliance truck stories, all of which are true, and this one will be no different. In this episode, I'm driving the twin-stick R-model Mack boom truck, the largest in our fleet. This truck was big, heavy, and it had an unusually wide turning radius. At that time, I delivered construction materials. While we had residential and commercial materials, I often focused on new construction and commercial sites due to the truck being so large. Every once in a while, I would get a residential delivery. Most of these deliveries I could make from the street without having to pull on the property. This is not one of those stories. So this one day, I'm told I'm doing a residential roofing delivery to the roof of the house. My radar is now on because I am familiar with the roads in that area, and they are narrow. Delivery to the roof means I have to enter the property and get right up to the house. I get loaded and get to the job. As I approach the job site, the road is narrow, barely 20 feet wide. The house is on my left, and facing the property, the driveway is on the left. Important in a second. I stop and go find the person in charge. He says, "You're right on time. I need you in the driveway and boom across the roof." I say, "That's great, but there are several issues. One, all the vehicles parked on the street need moved down past the neighbor's house for me to fit down this road. Two, I cannot make the turn from the street onto the driveway without driving across the lawn, backing up 2 or 3 times. Three, I cannot guarantee that driveway can support the weight." He shouts, "I'll move the trucks and you just get your truck in here," in a very demeaning tone. I say, "Okay, I will." As I back down the street to the intersection, turn around, and back up the road, he gets all the trucks moved. I get into position to pull on the property and stop. I grab my clipboard and jump out. I walk up to him and say, "I need you to sign this." We carry legal forms in the trucks that when signed makes the signee or their company responsible for any damage to the property, truck, load, or towing fees to get the truck off site. He signs and all but throws the clipboard at me. Well, okay then, game on. I turn into the yard and pull across the driveway and back up 4 times to get the truck completely on asphalt. Once in the best position I could get, I got out and looked at my handiwork. 8-inch ruts all across the front 29 feet of yard from the street. Each edge where the tires went from grass to asphalt or asphalt to grass, the driveway collapsed and broke away. The rest of the driveway had several 6-inch ruts that were at least a foot wide on most of the driveway. But I am not done yet. I have to put down my outriggers to stabilize the boom. Because the driveway was as wide as the truck meant that when I put them down, they would be in the lawn. I carried large blocks to enlarge the footprint of the outriggers to get stability on soft ground. This left 2 more 10-inch holes in the yard, about 3 foot by 4 foot square. I delivered the entire load with no issue. Then, the homeowner came home as I was climbing off the boom and started screaming at me for the state of his driveway and yard. I calmly turned and pointed to the job foreman and said, "You need to talk to him." Then turned back around and finished wrapping up the truck. I could hear them as they were screaming at each other, but could not understand what they were saying. The final insult, I had to ask them both to move their vehicles so I could back out. And yes, more ruts were made leaving. I paused on the street for a minute to check out my handiwork. It was bad. I got back to the warehouse and the bosses cornered me before I could get into the office. The contractor's boss had blown up my boss's phone with threats and complaints. I quickly explained and pulled out the signed affidavit. Boss said, "Well, okay then, we're covered." And I heard nothing more about it. That affidavit has saved my butt a lot over the years and has afforded me some great and funny malicious compliance over the years. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Me Folly. It says, "I do not understand people who look straight at an experienced service provider and dismiss every warning given. I just told you 3 times that if I do what you're asking, there will be consequences. Bad ones. Guaranteed. And those people say, nah, I wanna. Here, sign my waiver. I am absolutely familiar with this kind of person from my years as a tow truck driver before KCC/Karma Stories became a thing. So yeah, your car is currently sitting on its side in a ditch and you want me to pull it back over and get it back up on the road so we can tow it out to get it fixed. But you don't want me to cause any more damage to the vehicle that's already up on its side. We'll see about that. But in the meantime, sign this form, will ya? One thing that really gets me about OP's story is that the job foreman was the one that said, you just need to get it done. Okay. How long has this job foreman been actually on the job for? Did they not know that when somebody hands you a waiver, you should probably rethink what you're telling them to do? I don't know why, but this job foreman to me, it kind of screams Nepo hire. What do you guys think? Make sure to comment down below. This story comes to us from Lord Darkfall. You will stack the hay how I want it stacked. I used to work for and manage a rural stock feed supply shop that delivered hard feed and hay to many of the local hobby farms. During the earlier year or two of my time there was a lady who, after some time, we came to a solid understanding that she can be a prickly bee, and we have since laughed about this incident. For the sake of keeping her identity safe, let's call her Janice for this tale. Now, this gal is somewhere in her mid-60s, and has quite the boomer attitude when it comes to doing things. That fun old shtick of, I've been doing this since you were in nappies, so do it how I tell you. Well, this one fine summer, in the middle of a drought, she ordered a large batch of hay, 60 bales. I drive out in the truck, and I know I'm gonna get a good workout putting these babies in her shed because the truck can't get close to her shed. Not a cloud in the sky to stop that sun beating down my neck as I unload the truck. 33 degrees Celsius, which is somewhere in the 90s Fahrenheit for you Freedom Unit loving readers. I start stacking the hay in her shed in a formation so as the hay bales will interlock kind of like brickwork and not fall over, each layer being 6 bales, 2 stacks, 5 high, 60 bales. If you need a bit more of an explanation on that, well, I don't quite know what to tell you, sorry. I also didn't quite know what to tell old Janice when she came running up. You're stacking it all wrong, she tells me. You'll never fit it all in the shed. As I try to explain my plan, she talks over me and begins to gruffly comment something about uppity young craps who think they know everything. She pulls apart my stack and begins to stack the hay all in the same lines. I already see the problem. Stacking 5 bales high like this is going to see a whole stack fall down whoever goes to get hay from the top of it. It's dangerous. It's stupid. It's not safe. Cue Malicious Compliance. I stacked the hay just like she wanted me to, and I noticed the stack is very close to someone screaming Jenga. I tell her she can put the final bale up. No, I'll feed this one out tonight, she says. Happy that I stacked it her way, she waves goodbye. I get in my truck. I start the engine. Oh, F, I hear from the hay shed. I swivel my head, and there lay poor old Janice under 10 bales of hay that somehow fell on top of her. I promptly unbury her. I call my boss. Yeah, I'm gonna have to restack all this hay. She just won't learn her lesson. This time, as I restack the hay, I explain why I stacked it the way I did. And while she rolled her shoulder, wincing at the pain caused by her own stupidity, she says to me, glad one of us knows what they're doing. So again, in this story, we're talking about a professional who knows how to do their job, but the person on the receiving end thinks they know better. OP in this case didn't have a waiver though, and they definitely should have. Because if they had been a couple minutes later pulling out of that driveway, and those bales had fallen onto that woman, they could have been liable for that woman being dead. So yeah, it should have been a waiver in this case, or OP should have said to the woman, hey, we can't do this, I'm gonna bail now. This story comes to us from Just Tested My Might. Manager said every call must be exactly 3 minutes, so I gave customers the 3-minute experience. I used to work at a call center where management was obsessed with metrics. One day, our manager announced a new rule. Every call must last 3 minutes. No more, no less. We're standardizing the customer experience. Now, anyone who's ever worked phones knows that's ridiculous. Some issues take 30 seconds, some take 15 minutes, but hey, boss's orders. So I complied. I started dragging out the 30-second calls with ridiculous filler. Let me just put you on a very quick hold while I confirm your account color scheme. Could you repeat your zip code, but slower this time? Before I transfer you, let me read you the weather forecast for your area. And if a call ran long, at exactly the 3-minute mark, I'd cut in with, I am terribly sorry, but I have to end this call now. Please dial back if your problem isn't solved. Fallout, customers were furious, complaints started flooding in, and the manager had to sit in on calls to figure out why satisfaction scores tanked. I don't know why OP didn't put it in the original post, but down in the comments they said, the rule got canned almost immediately once complaints started rolling in. It's interesting that they didn't put that in the original post, but maybe the original post got to a 3-minute read and they decided we were just done there. I can completely understand when a call center says that they're looking for an average call time of about 3 minutes. That makes sense because it's an average, it's not a hard mark saying your call needs to be 3 minutes. Some calls are shorter, some calls are longer. The metric you really need to be focusing in on though is customer satisfaction. It shouldn't matter how long it takes to get the call completed as long as the customer doesn't have to call back for a resolution, that you are fixing their issue on that first call and the customer is happy. This story comes to us from Ubiquitous Hilarity. No hair that touches the shirt collar? Okay, we'll wear wigs. This is setting the Wayback Machine to the early 90s, back when the membership warehouse I worked for allowed smoking in the break room. One day, seemingly out of nowhere, our warehouse manager decided to enforce the dress code that men's hair could not be long enough to touch the collar of our shirt. This was a problem for a few of my coworkers who had very long hair. One guy had been growing his out since high school, and it was down to his butt. Well, none of them wanted to cut their hair, but were being given no wiggle room. Well, one day, the guy referenced above came to work with short hair. It looked like he actually cut it, but after a few days, he told us, no management, that he had a wig made that looked like his real hair. This led to all the other guys with questionable locks getting wigs. Now, where the malicious compliance comes in is that the wigs began to get more and more ridiculous. It got to the point the shoppers were making comments, and these guys weren't shy about telling them that management said they weren't allowed to have long hair. The whole fiasco lasted less than 4 months before we were told that as long as the natural hair was clean, presentable, and didn't interfere with working duties, lengths would no longer be an issue. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Loki Kami Sama. It says, I'd have just put mine up in a ridiculous prom updo, then pointed out that my hair was not, in fact, touching my collar, so therefore it was okay. Okay, the wigs definitely sound like fun, but I think I would have dialed it up even further. You know those funky, multicolored clown afros you can buy? I would totally put one of those on and wear that into work with the biggest smile on my face, saying, well, it's not touching my collar. I mean, it's either that or it would be time for the spiky mohawk. You remember those from the 90s? Heh, I do. This story comes to us from Mortis4242, my ex-coworker as a youth. Before I begin, it's a funny story. Since it's secondhand, take it as you will. So as my title states, this is an ex-coworker from a job many years ago when he was in his teens, so late 1950s to early 1960s. He shall be known as M. M grew up in a small town. When I say small, I mean one traffic light, gas station, diner, post office, and a couple other things. And a library. This factors in later. M and his buddies were bored. They didn't have much to do in town, and the next bigger town was an hour drive one way. Knowing his age, it was up the hill both ways. So they were, as teens with cars, bored. They decided to go to the library. They find a book. And in this tome, they find the perfect nighttime activity. Giddy with excitement, I'm embellishing since I don't know for sure, they get their supplies. Cue nighttime. M and his friends get into their cars and start driving down the roads and crisscross through the small town, making lots of racket. Nothing dangerous, and they're driving below the speed limit. About an hour later, the one sheriff for the town pulls the guys over and gives them tickets for disturbing the peace, and a summons to appear in court. In court, they stand before the judge, known as J. J reads the case details and asks how they plead. M has been nominated as speaker for the group and informs J as such, with his friends agreeing. Your Honor, my friends have elected me to speak on their behalf. And before we go further, can I ask a question? Proceed. When we entered our plea, may I explain why we did it? Absolutely. Well then, Your Honor, for the charge of disturbing the peace, we plead guilty since we in fact were. But Your Honor, we had good cause. The judge is equal parts irritated and intrigued. Okay, I need to hear this. Proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. Essentially, we are both guilty and innocent. Guilty because we did do what it claims on the ticket. We are innocent because of what we did is actually a law. Come again? Well, we were in the library and found a copy of the laws for the town. And inside it, we found this law. All horseless carriages must drag 8 feet of logging chain with links of 3/4 inch behind itself at night. Clerk, go to the library and bring this book. A few minutes later, the clerk brings it before the judge. Show me. Give me a moment, sir. Pause through until finding the page. Here, Your Honor. Judge looks at it, and sure enough, there is in fact a law describing what M claimed. The charges are dismissed, but don't do it again because it will not be in this book. This story to me was just a case of kids being kids. Sure, they made a little bit of noise, but they didn't harm anybody or anything, and in the end, they used their knowledge of the town laws against the judge. That was pretty well done if you ask me, but I might just be yanking your chain. Alright, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.